року починати нашу сьогоднішню зустріч. Вітаю всіх.
So I guess we can start our today's meeting. I welcome everyone who has joined us today. This is the educational platform of PGUA, and we have the second meeting today in the series of our March workshops. I thank everyone who has joined us today, and I thank everyone who called their colleagues to join. It is so nice to see all of you here. I do hope that those who took part in the meeting last Friday got lots of interesting and useful information. And the ones who failed to take part on Friday, please visit our YouTube channel of PGUA, and there you will find the video recording. My name is Alexander Kleimanov. I'm the head of the TV and cinema content department in the project of transformation and communications activity. This is the project of the United States Agency on International Development, USAID. We are conducting on a permanent basis the grant competition, which has the name of PGUA. That is the Social Impact Content Support Project. I'm sure that lots of the participants of our meeting today have already either took part in it or even got some of the grants, the funding. So I guess that you know what that is. And simultaneously with the grant contest, we also have the educational platform, thanks to which we are inviting the international experts for them to share with the representatives of the Ukrainian audiovisual industry, for them to share their experience and recommendations and pieces of advice, which we do hope will be useful for all of you. Our March meetings are devoted to the exit of the Ukrainian content to the international scene abroad, and not only within Ukraine, because of course, since the beginning of the big war, lots of Ukrainian producers faced the situation that they somehow had to find those ways out, some exits abroad, to search for the partners on co-production, the partners on co-funding the content. But maybe lots of you didn't have such an experience before. That is why we devoted these meetings to these topics, for you to hear about the best practices, for you to hear the success stories, and also for you to get to know what you shouldn't do. So today we have meeting number 2. Today we will be speaking about success stories of Ukrainian productions. And our guest today is the producer of Film UA, Anna Eliseyeva, and also the co-owners of Osnova Film Production, Tetiana Kuts, the Director General and General Producer Victoria Gorenstein, and the hosts of our today's conversation of this workshop, our experts Adam Siegel and Josh Weinstock.
Приєднуються до нас з Голлівуду. Там
They're joining us from Hollywood, so it's early morning there.
Off we go. I hope this one will be very interesting for all of our participants today.
Thanks, Alex.
Thanks, Alex.
Oh, one more thing. Again, I forgot to tell people about simultaneous translation.
Right.
Якщо ви ще не зрозуміли...
So if you still did not understand that, we have simultaneous interpretation, and you can turn it on pushing the button of globe at the bottom panel in Zoom. And all those who are watching us in YouTube, we have separate 2 links for Ukrainian and English languages.
Over to you.
Thanks, Alex. Hey, Josh.
Adam.
And so today we're excited because we're actually going to talk to real experts in international production who are I like to call our colleagues because we've been working with them. We're still working with them, who are Ukrainian based or Ukrainian producers who have successfully made co-production deals for their projects and have been involved in projects that have been they've been able to create licensing deals and sell internationally. So, and this is just, I think, incredibly valuable. This is really, how this happens. So yes, on Friday was our kind of primer, giving those of you who may not have a full language or understanding of how the international production or co-production and acquisition space. So now, using a lot of that knowledge, we're going to sort of put it into action here. So we'll call them up and start asking them some questions about their projects.
Yeah.
Joshua,
And I just wanted to add, we're going to make sure we leave some time at the end for some Q&A so that, you can have the opportunity to either ask us or ask our panelists here, specific questions about their own experiences.
That's great. All right. So, well, thank you, Anna and Tetiana and Victoria. We want to start really by basically asking you each, and you can answer, you can decide if you want to go first, but we really just want to know about the project that you worked on, the origin of the project that you've been able to set up for a co-production. And we want to know, why did you decide to seek an international co-production? And what was that experience like? Was this new? How did you find your co-production partner? Or how did they find you? So sort of the basics of kind of what happened in this experience for you.
Доброго
Let's
дня.
start.
Hello.
Anna, yes.
Я просто привіталася.
I just said hello, honestly speaking, but still, if my colleagues don't mind, I can be the one to use this opportunity and to be the first to speak. So mostly, as the majority of the Ukrainian producers, I have been working at the local market, and my task was the development of the internal industry. I was dealing mostly with comedies, TV shows and series, but there was a project, even before the war, which was positioned as the international project, the project which was claiming to get vast co-production of both European and world. That is our animation, The Forest Song, Mavka. And we did not have the co-production, but we have some experience of negotiations, what we need to prepare, what we need
IP.
to know about the international market. When you have the Ukrainian or just local IP, how you need to search for partners. But now, during the war, the international projects and the exit to different markets is the only chance to survive, for the opportunity to go on moving, because the state, as we understand, doesn't have money. And even if we have money, they are not that substantial. So we do understand that the economy of the country is now focused for the country to get victory in the war. But still, we need to keep our front line to do everything for the victory, whatever we can. And we began to develop the projects, and the projects which we had have started adapting for the international market. Today, we will issue the press release. We're already at the production stage of the international co-production project with international distribution. That will be an interesting scheme. A TV show with the name The Ones Who Are Left or Leftovers. Maybe I'll give the floor to my colleagues now, and then we'll speak about some details.
Sure.
Hello everyone. My name is Tetiana Kuts, and I would say that we have a bit of a different situation, because now we just had a project on co-production with Estonia. That is the feature film of 100 minutes of, and it has the name of Yurik. So how did we find this co-production? This is the story of our company, which has been created just recently. We are only 4 years old. During these 4 years, we have created 5 projects, and this is one of the projects, which was the TV show Mama, which we first sent to the a serial killer, and we got to the main competition. It was before the war, before the full-scale invasion, I mean. And after the full-scale invasion took place, the representatives of serial killer offered us a separate screening in Brno, in Czechia, where the Europeans were totally differently responding and reacting our project of Mama. And after that, instantly, we started the licensing process in different countries. Our task was not only to get profits, but also to tell the story which is taking place now on the territory of Ukraine. That is why we have had negotiations with almost all of the European central TV channels, and we got the contracts with the TVN, the first channel in Poland, the TV channel 1 in Latvia, in Lithuania, and TV1 ETV in Estonia. So during the war, we have created and written the new project, which has the name Yurik. This is the feature film. And in fact, the USAID Foundation has supported this idea. And we understood that the Ukrainian TV channels and the Ukrainian state are not capable to fund it now in the amount as they used to fund before the war. So that is why we found a different way. We had a bit of funding from the TV channel of STB, a bit of funding by the platform of Kyivstar, and in fact, thanks to selling of Mama TV series to Estonia, then we got acquainted directly with the director of the TV channel at the Cannes Festival, where all the Ukrainians producers were represented. And as you know, for all of the producers, there was the free of charge program, which helped them to get there without any obstacles. And after that, with the help of the STB TV channel, we got negotiations with the Estonian TV channel, which in fact understood that we are the producers. They knew the quality of the content which we produce, and they joined the creation, they began the co-production at the application stage of this project. So as of today, we have already had it, the shooting process. So we had both financial cooperation and producers cooperation. Estonian party has provided casting and the casting of the Estonian actors. Those were the producers who recommended their actresses, who are the actresses of Line A. Well, of course, to have a more attractive project, and they also helped in the organizational process. As for logistics of the actors to the territory of Ukraine, 2 Estonian actresses came to our country and had a shooting process in Ukraine, and simultaneously the Estonian TV channel is helping us with the shooting processes of the plans in Estonia, but still the whole story is done here on the territory of Ukraine. That's it about our experience.
Thanks, Tanya. Hey, Victoria, anything you want to add to that, or did she?
Таня вже розповіла про весь наш досвід.
Well, Tetiana has already told about all of our experience about the work with our international partners. In a nutshell, yes, we sold 2 of our TV shows, Mama and the other one, to the bigger number of European markets. So we can tell more details about that if you're interested how it took place. And now we have the co-production of our TV movie, which is now being edited. But Tetiana has already told a lot of that.
Yeah, and so we're going to hit some of these later as well. But
yeah, we're keeping it a little bit with the co-productions up front. Then we're going to talk about acquisitions next. So we'll get into that. But before we move on, Anna, would you just go into a little more detail about because you're also working with ETV as well as other partners. Can you talk a little bit about what happened with the leftovers, or those who those who remain project that you're working on?
Так,
Yes. So if I begin from the overall part, when we are searching for partners, when we would like to create a co-production, we need to understand the idea which I use to get to the market. For instance, this is your local story, which concerns your country, your people. It's very narrow. Then we still need to answer the question for ourselves: what can attract the foreign partners in this story? What can be universal in it? So what can be really interesting for the people? We know that since the beginning of the war, all the Ukrainians producers to this or that extent were trying to search for the partners to begin some of the common stories. Some of them failed, and we also had some projects which unfortunately were left on the shelves. We need to understand that when you're searching for someone, then you need to instantly answer the questions what the people can find in it. So you need to create a nice pitch deck, a nice presentation, which Adam and Josh have already helped us to do. So during these years of cooperation, we know how to make it. And we need to pay lots of attention to the formulation, to the shaping of the topic. That yes, this story is Ukrainian, but still what can be interesting for the foreign viewer? Because we do understand that behind each of the partners, we can see a foreign audience. What can be attractive for the foreign audience? Maybe people can associate themselves with these characters. Moreover, when you look at our situation, our stories are mostly about the war. And we understand that those are extraordinary circumstances and conflicts that people sometimes lack the tools to be in the circumstances where, in fact, your characters are. That is why you need to work a lot to give your ideas, to let the people understand the ideas, why the story is important to be told to the world. We understand why it's important for the Ukrainians, because we are sharing our pain, we tell who we are and why it's important for us to fight. We show ourselves to the world, but we need to explain to the world why it should be interesting. So this is the well thought through a presentation with the explanation of the topics and characters, who those people are, why those people are the same people as everybody else, and why you can believe in those circumstances. You need to find the proper references. This is a very important first step. Then I think that those are not that numerous ways where you can find partners. Those are cinema markets, TV markets, the forums where you need to apply and to go there, and international pitches like Serious Mania or pitchings at other European platforms, which are rather numerous. We have created the whole list of all of the events which will take part in, and this is where we'd like to thank all the international community, because really last year the Ukrainian producers had really warm reception. We had discounts and grants and reimbursement for the travel fees, and we need to study those opportunities. We need to know about that. We visited Canada. We visited almost all Europe. Well, of course, first of all, our first partners was Eastern Europe, Central Europe, the people who are closer to us in mentality and the ones who are closer dealing with our situation. Our project, to speak in more details, those who remain, is the anthology project, which is an unusual format for Ukrainian TV. It was born in early March when Kyiv was still surrounded, but still we wanted to tell those incredible stories about the people who remained in Kyiv to protect the capital city. We know that 50% of the population of Kyiv left with children or without children, just left, but 50% of the population stayed. And those were not only territorial defense warriors, those were mothers, children, families, doctors, the ones who helped the territorial defense. And we selected 6 stories. They're very simple and touching, and sometimes lead to anxiety or to the optimism. Some of them are tragic, some of them are with humor, but all of them are telling incredible and intimate personal stories. They are in the background of the war, but they are telling what the person is living inside with, how we began to take care about each other, about our children, our pets, and this factor, this intonation, and this focus helped us I would say to rather easily, in comparison with even other our projects, to find the partners, because it resonated what we were telling. The human stories with simple, understandable emotions all over the world. We wrote the script in the partnership with the German distributor Red Arrow, and we helped them to develop the project and to write the project. But at the stage of the written scripts at the first MIP, we were joined by Nordic countries, that is Finland, the TV channel Oily, which is a public channel, public broadcaster, I mean, and the Norwegian TV channel, NRK, and SVT from Sweden. They read the script and they gave us the feedback, what resonated. These human, intimate, sincere stories which could touch their viewers, and from the other hand, to explain who those Kiev residents are, who those people are, what was their motivation to stay in the surrounded city by the enemy.
Надією і з оптимізмом, хоча коли
The stories were really optimistic, but we did not know how the situation is going to work out. We do not know even now what's going to come in the future, but it was very important for us to really give the message to the partners which resonated with them and really helped us to understand the situation.
я підвисла.
That was a great answer.
That's a great answer, Anna. And also, Anna has just echoed a lot of the things we were talking about on Friday. So for those who were watching both, it was great confirmation and also put into practice, like seamlessly, because I think that's kind of the key here, is that this can't be a forced process. You actually have to start to find a natural, organic way of working with international partners. And I like particularly the point, particularly with this project, which I've read the projects and also find incredibly emotional and very, very touching and funny and really work for an international audience. And, you know, sometimes the way you developed it by developing it with an international distributor or a German distributor and be getting feedback from these different partners is really the best way to start to test your projects, to sort of see, hey, this is really working internationally, and getting that kind of feedback, which is really, really important.
Yeah, and so I think that's a good segue into the next question, which is really sort of the early development process with your co-production partners. And I'm going to gear this initially to Tetiana and Victoria about Urich, you know, in terms of your process, in terms of the script development process. How did the partnership with the Estonian broadcaster sort of influence the script and the creative decisions? Like, did you have the idea not sort of with the intention of finding this partnership, and then when you found the partnership, you sort of had to adapt creatively the storytelling, or did it sort of all naturally kind of come into place? If you can sort of like kind of walk us through the script development phase with your co-production partner.
Віка, тебе не
Вибачте, да, я без звука почала. Давайте, певно, що я трошки почну, а Таня...
Well, I will start and maybe Tanya will complete my story. Actually, our film, feature film, Urich, it's our actually story. It's quite unique. This is what's going on in our country, and that's why our co-production is, I would say, we are the majority partner in this co-production, because the Estonians have a difficulty to understand what's exactly going on in this country, how it is going on, how it is evolving. And they were very much interested in this story. This is a story about a small boy who is walking through the war And actually, and it's a story about the thing which should not have started and what started in this country. And this is the story about uncomfortable things, a child and the war. And the Estonians were very much interested to find out the story of a boy who is traveling to his relatives to Estonia. So not simply the financial partners, but they also the partners in writing scenario and production, and the Estonian actresses that were coming to Ukraine. Even today, they have been filmed in Kiev, in our production process during the war. They were here in Kiev. This was a difficult experience for them, but this experience was absolutely interesting for both parties. But this was our script, and Estonians were reading it and editing it. But Josh helped us a lot with this scenario, and he helped more than the Estonians did. But Estonians actually were editing, doctoring the Estonian part of it, the way the Estonian heroes and characters are acting and how they're speaking and how they're reacting, responding. And this is how they participated in scenario writing. And now they are also participating in the co-production. And if they would like to give some editing, they do. At present, we are at a point where all the news seems to come out of Ukraine. And this news actually change the world and political history, that a lot of countries, the European Union countries, the United States, Australia, all the democratic world is helping Ukraine. And that's why within these 12 months, so many joint stories have emerged which are related to Ukraine and actually connect Ukraine with other countries. And I believe that we have a lot of opportunities today. We are now at the point at present where we can continue developing, co-produce in the sense of cooperation between a number of countries, a lot of countries, all the countries.
Oh, that's great. I want to then take another point about the co-production, sort of really about the logistics, if you will. And maybe Anna, I'll direct this towards you. You know, when you start to work in a co-production kind of scheme, you know, what are the different roles among the partners? You know, how do you sort of balance the responsibilities? Is it sort of like, is there kind of like equal responsibility, or are there certain partners who kind of take the lead? Obviously, Film UA is the leader of the project because they initiated it. But could you explain a little bit about how that works from your point of view?
Так, Адаме, дякую. Я, в принципі, розумію.
Yes, Adam, thank you for the question. Yeah, I understand that the question is very complex. And when we are talking in general, we understand that co-production is a very, very complex thing. Maybe it's the summit, a pinnacle of the producer's art, because when a number of parties are participating, immediately the question comes up, how the decisions are going to be made. Usually, the decisions are taken by the funding party, and actually who invests more in the project. But nevertheless, when you start to work at the phase of negotiation, you have to understand that this is a filigree process. It's a very fine process because the co-production means that each party has to make a contribution, including a creative contribution. So now we are in the phase of development in the pose, and we are 50-50 partners. And we just sat down and we said, why don't we forget about egos? We are just starting the project. Let us develop the ground rules that where we are going to definitely respect each other and divide the roles. Who is going to be leading? So my situation is the following. There are two creative producers, two authors are absolutely, equal. And they have to take a decision who is going to be leading, who is going to say the final word when there will be some, issues coming up, which always come up during the creative process. Who is going to really take a final decision? And I believe that this depends on how do you make an agreement, and it depends on how you feel, to what extent you are partners, and how do you feel this partnership, and to what extent you trust each other. We know from practice that it's difficult to work on the basis of co-production. Even if you agree upon various decisions, you still have a question: how many actors are going to represent each party, and whose talents are going to be more numerous than the talents of the other party. And when we started to communicate with the international market, it is actually difficult to make co-production with Czech Republic or Poland. Well, even though we thought that we have the same mindset, but well, we have to be prepared to take these decisions. But our main partner in the previous project was the German distribution bureau. And the topic is very sensitive. So they were, very, very sensitive in terms of doctoring and editing. And as my colleague said, one story is when you come with a topic which only you really understand well. So the partner has to trust you. And if the scenario is written by a talented person, and if it's persuasive, then actually they give you, so to say, a free hand. So I would like to share some of my experience as for the war themes. The Western partners are always very much interested how the Russians are going to be presented, because, the characters are very complex. It's a dramatic event to a certain level. You cannot just, say that this character is just bad. It's a very low level of drama. And if you do not seek for, some internal, inner understanding of the motives of the action of the characters. But we have to understand that the Ukrainians at this point of time are in the state of war with the people who came to conquer our land. It's very difficult for us to actually depict them as very complex characters. So we were trying to find the way out of the situation. So we focus on Ukrainians in our serial. There is only one episode when the Russians come to the zoo. But really, 12 months ago, Russians were visiting the zoo, and for 12 months, and we know how they behaved. So the 3 scenes which we developed, we left them the way we have wrote them from the very beginning together with our German partner. Then the Finnish people and Norwegians and Swedes have joined us. They also read our scenario, and they wanted to understand whether it resonates with their viewers and whether we do have a propaganda, because it's very important for them so that there will be no propaganda in the public channel. They have read the scenario and they didn't make any comments. And actually, they praised us for the fact that we found this very fine borderline, and we actually very well and persuasively laid out our Ukrainian story, Ukrainian position, and this was not, very sharply identified as the way it can be done in the documentaries or in the news. And, they were happy about the angle from which we were delivering these stories. Maybe this is not really very well perceived by the Ukrainians, but everybody has to understand that this is our war, this is the way we are living. And for us, it's very important to depict Ukrainians as heroic people who are fighting for their freedom. But after all, we live in the world where there are certain rules, especially in the world of media, drama, where there are certain laws and there are certain requirements, the way we are actually developing the character. While Adam and Josh are listening to the end of the translation, I would like to encourage all the participants to write the questions in the chat, in Zoom, and those who are watching us on YouTube. Please write the questions in YouTube. We are going to take them a little bit later during the Q&A. And if some of the participants have own experience of cooperation with the international partners within the last 12 months of our difficult time, well, please share this experience from with us later. Adam and Josh, please, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Alex.
Thank you, Anna. That's a really good response. And I would just echo a little bit what we talked about last time, which was that obviously there's this balance between looking at the domestic audience, trying to figure out what makes sense here versus the international audience. I think, Anna, you've raised a point that we've talked about on other projects. It's really, really hard to explain to international partners in a lot of ways, like really what's going on for Ukrainians, particularly around how do you create Russian characters, or how do you show Russian characters? And I think these are issues that, from the Ukrainian point of view, you need to have some patience with the people in the international side, because they just don't get it, right? They get it now more. I mean, obviously, as this horrific, aggression is made more public and people understand it more, they get it more. But I think still, there's a natural tendency, particularly among the West, among free democratic societies, to sort of try to look at both sides or try to find some sort of middle ground or whatever. And I think this is an issue that's really sometimes hard for people outside of Ukraine to understand. So when working with your international partners, it sometimes will take a little bit of time to get them to understand that. But obviously you have to, because you also have to understand your domestic market, and it's a conversation. So I mean, we've been, I personally have been encountering this, and it takes a little time. So just know that, particularly on some of these issues.
Yeah. And I love what Anna said about surrendering the ego, especially when you have multiple partners, because that is critical, because everyone's going to have a say. So it's just important that, you really find a way to satisfy and work together, which actually leads me to the next question. I know, Adam, we talked about on Friday that, when you are doing co-productions, there's going to be certain requirements that come with that you have to satisfy in order to sort of fulfill some of the benefits of it. I know the Tetiana and Victoria, I know this was your first sort of dive into co-productions. And I remember getting an email from you earlier on saying, it was very confusing at first, but then, after you guys did your research and read up on stuff, it became much more clear. Can you sort of describe the process of navigating the co-production process with your partners, and sort of what you had to do in order to satisfy all the requirements that kind of came with the partnership? Whether that was casting or, we had talked about on Friday, certain countries have point systems that you have to abide by in order to fully satisfy those requirements. And obviously there's also the cultural elements that have to also be taken into consideration.
Нам було трохи легше, ніж нашим партнерам, бо ми працюємо з
It was a little bit easier to work with Estonia in comparison with our partners, because Estonia is the country which supports Ukraine the most out of all the European countries. Their per capita contributions to the support of Ukraine is the highest, the largest. They understand far too well what Russia is. And we do not have to explain them that there are very few good Russians, so to say. And that's much easier, because I understand understand what, as Anna was saying, she was working and talking about the West European countries' representatives, and it is necessary to explain them what we feel. But in Estonia, it was much easier for us. And as I've told you already, that we have a majority stake in this project, and they gave us an opportunity to say the last word in this project because they understand that this is a purely Ukrainian story. And well, luckily, only Ukrainians understand how we live in this situation. That's why they actually agreed to our ideas, to other scenarios. And when we were talking about co-production, first of all, we were deciding that we are going to work for a couple of days and shoot a couple of days in Estonia. But now, as we all understand, there are problems for the men to travel outside this country. It's very difficult to shoot online. And this is our project. And when we were discussing how to develop it, we came to an agreement that Estonian actresses will come to this country, to Ukraine, and they will actually work with our male actors, with our film director, with our cameraman, and under our supervision. Estonian actresses were selected by Estonians. It is very important for them so that these actresses will be well known to the Ukrainian viewers, so that they will be recognizable, understandable to the viewers. That's why they gave the casting of the actors. And we selected from a number of actresses who they offered us. But that was easy to do because the actresses were a high level and they were working perfectly well during the acting and then during the production, during the shooting in Kiev. And now I hope that soon it's not going to be a problem, but now there was a problem with logistics, how to get to Kiev. They were actually getting prepared to this for a long time because it is really scary for Ukrainians, for Europeans to come to Kiev. And we were shooting at the end of February during the first year anniversary, and people were apprehensive what's going to happen in Kiev in those days. But it was quite a quest for the Estonian actresses. But nevertheless, they came and they worked perfectly well. And
не розмовляють, звісно, українською і не розмовляють російською. Тобто тут було питання
they don't speak Ukrainian or Russian.
So the question was also about the languages and about how to organize their arrival.
Now it was easier
but still,
to resolve than
it was still much more interesting because we got used to the air raid alarms. By the way, we have one in Kiev now, and they could stand it. In fact, we had Estonian actresses, and as we are asking what the Estonians were doing in this project, they approved the script as well. And also, as we are at the post-production stage, we will work on that, and we will also approve the post-production of what was done.
Right. So let me just kind of follow up on that as well. So, you had mentioned you had Estonian actors who also spoke in Estonian. Was there sort of a requirement how much footage they had to speak in Estonian, or was that still entirely left into your creative decisions?
Well, in fact, there were no requirements. We have been cooperating and we were speaking about the percentage of Estonia as a country in the frame. But the Estonians didn't have any requirements about the languages because our actresses are speaking Ukrainian. And when they're talking with the Ukrainians, they're talking Ukrainian as well. And it is what they really coped with because we were a bit worried whether they managed to do that. But their Ukrainian was really, really good. And they talked to each other Estonian, but there were no requirements. If you say those are requirements, they did not exist. We just spoke about that, and that's it. Estonians really liked our story, so they agreed how Estonia was shown, how it was shown in our story. But there were no requirements of the percentage of languages. And they agreed that the Estonians will be speaking Ukrainian, in fact, because they are Estonians, the characters who originate from Ukraine, because our older Estonian is the sister of one of the main characters in the film, the grandmother of the boy. That is why she is speaking Ukrainian with her sister and a niece, and her daughter is speaking Ukrainian as well when she is in Ukraine. And I would say that this was more our initiative to speak Estonian between each other, because then the product is much more naturally looking. And the Estonian actress who originates from Ukraine, she was speaking Estonian with a Ukrainian accent. Yes, we do hope. She promised to check. We can't check ourselves, but we hope it is like that.
That's great. I think I also appreciate your comment, Victoria, regarding sort of the location, the issues around location. Obviously, there's a war going on, and with certain co-productions, it will not be tenable to shoot in Kyiv. It's going to be hard, maybe at times, to shoot inside Ukraine, which kind of gets us to a question I want to turn to Anna about. You are just starting. I know production just started last week. So you may have some answers to this, and maybe this could be more around in terms of how you put together the project and financing. But what are the challenges that you've had regarding sort of locations in terms of getting the partners on board, making sure you have all the money you need? You know, we worked on this. So what can you share about just the challenges that you're facing, and how do you overcome them?
Well, we Ukrainians have an advantage that our production was a challenge even before the war. Just our challenges are much bigger than they used to be. And the funding was always hard to collect, in fact, if the project is much more expensive than the average price at the market. We need to have a good story, a good script, and to believe in it. And we were lucky with the partners, in fact. The German studio of Red Arrow and the distributor funded almost a half. And then just in advance, I mean. And then it's your art, your creative art, how you can make a deal with the people, with the team, with the locations, when you pay for that, and when do you provide all the payments later or delay with them, whether you can decrease the price, and so on. But I would like it to be there. I would like it to understand that we can shoot in Kyiv. It is possible. And let me rephrase what we told to the partners when we discussed what we do in Kyiv. This story is about Kyiv. So we created the safety protocols which we used in our production process. How we behave in case of danger, in case of air raid alarm or missile attack, what's the length of the working hours. We had insurance of our production as much as it was possible, because not all of the insurance companies were working with Ukraine, but we were able to ensure the health and the life of the key staff, and we were able to ensure from the mistakes, I don't remember the name, the error insurance maybe, which is very well disseminated during the production. As for the locations, it's not the issue, because they look how they need to look during the war. We still have lots of checkpoints, we still have lots of military atmosphere, billboards. The whole city looks like the city at the war. It doesn't look still how it used to look at the pre-war times. We didn't have that much of production design for that. And the Ukrainian actors did not stop their work. We were going on with the shooting process all the time, and we had the rules of behavior when we had the air raid alarm, when we stop, when we go on, and all of those additional changes, all of those risks had to be budgeted, of course. Now we have a German actor who came here, Fabian Mellon. He is playing the German who came to Kiev to save a Ukrainian girl, and he stayed and became a volunteer, and he came from Hamburg. Before the casting, when the casting started, we already made an announcement that we are ready and you need to shoot in Kiev. We need the actors who are ready to come to Kiev, and you will be amazed. We thought it would be the risk, it would be complicated and long, and we were short of time since the decision-making process and the launch of the production, but we had a huge selection of German actors, including Elias Reichert, who took part in the best weekend before. He also had a wish to come here and to have a shooting process in Kiev because they have the proper position. They would like to help Ukrainians tell those important stories. For some of them, it's an important personal experience to see and to feel what's impossible to feel when you are abroad until you feel it yourself. And of course, we are trying to preserve our German actor. We bring him everywhere. We showed him the shelters, the bomb shelters. We warned everyone at the receptions. He's always with the administrators or with the assistants on casting. And I'm always calling him all the time and asking how is he feeling. But when we lived through this hard winter, and again, we are so thankful for everybody who stayed in Ukraine and supported Kiev as it is now, it's much more safer, and we feel it, that the missiles are almost not here, and I can only hope that it will be like this further on. The daylight is much longer, so I do hope that we'll have much more local shooting and co-productions. We cannot stop. In any case, we need to find the ways out. We need to make deals with people, to make deals about the discounts, the decreases of the prices, the delays of the payments. We need to do that. We know how to do that, in fact. We just need to even, I would say, we need to add some more qualities of ours to produce that.
Thank you, Anna. That was great. All right, so let's move to our discussion around acquisitions. If you don't mind, we're going to quickly just turn to, and I think what's nice is that both of you, these two different teams, have been involved in acquisitions. And that's actually what kind of gets you introduced to some of your co-producing partners. Tetiana and Victoria, why don't you start? Can you tell us kind of, what the project that you were able to get licensing fees for? Tell us a little bit more about that. I think, or Victoria, either one, you both were talking about that. This is your chance. Let us know a little bit about what happened with Mama and your other project.
Yes, we have an experience of acquisitions and sales of two projects. Well, in fact, it's one project. It's the season 1 and season 2. So we are speaking about the TV show Mama. We have a successful, as it seems to me, experience of sales. And for us, as Tetiana mentioned in the beginning, the acquisitions, the sales of this TV show was not about money. It was more about telling the world what we really were doing during these 8 years. This was the questions from the Russian propagandists and the bots in the beginning of the full-scale invasion. What did you do for 8 years? So our TV show Mama is about that the war did not start in February 2022. It is ongoing for 8 years already. And how we lived with it, what really took place here. Because if now the world finally began to respond, to react, and began to understood what is happening here, unfortunately, during all of those 8 years, we were on our own with this problem. And the world just seemed to pretend there was no war, that everything is perfect. And when it took place really in February, Ukraine has become interesting for everyone. And it was so important for us to tell our story, for it to be heard not only by the Ukrainians who are living through it, but also the whole world. And we started very active negotiations and talks with different countries, with different TV channels. And we had this daily work. We wrote to different TV channels, to different distributors, and told about our product. That it seemed to us that it would be interesting for their viewers, and it worked. Now, Mama is presented almost all over Western and Eastern Europe, because first we had 4 contracts which were direct. We sold Mama to Poland, Czechia, Estonia, and Latvia. But then we had a big contract with the concern, I would say, Arte. That is a German-French company, which has already translated Mama into French and German and English, of course. We had it already in English with the subtitles, and in Spanish, in Italian, then we had the UK. So Mama is traveling all over the world, and we are so happy that it is well perceived by the viewers all over the world, and it seems to us it will help understand how we lived and to understand more why we have what we have now, and that Europe maybe will respond better when sees the situation in Ukraine. For us, it was the most important question of Mama distribution to tell our story.
Але ми повинні теж додати ще, що в 21-му...
We also need to add that in 2021, when the serial killer representatives sent me to our first Mama, it was very hard to deal with the European channels that the war is ongoing here. They did not understand all the threats till the 24th of February. After the 24th of February, they had a huge leap in the understanding what is happening and that they are also in danger. For them, this front line has become much more comprehensible. And of course, the interest to these products has increased substantially at the channels managers as well. So it helped us work in the whole Central and Eastern Europe. And besides that, we also have the contract for 19 Arabic countries with the TV channel Mana. And this contract has been signed just, well, it was a very long process of negotiations and talks. They were done by our partners from STB TV channel, and those were just eternal, endless negotiations which were taking place for half a year. But still we got this contract just a couple of weeks ago, and our Mama is now speaking Arabic.
Sure. Very, very, very beautiful in Arabic, I'm sure. So, and again, I think it speaks to, again, what we had talked about, just storytelling wise and conceptually, that, you know, if you have a very good basic story with great characters, it really can apply anywhere, you know, like people and Anna had mentioned this earlier, is like the storytelling is great. People can relate to what you're pitching, even if the location of something doesn't happen to take place domestically. So I think it's really important to sort of emphasize that. And actually, I kind of want to follow up on the similar question, because obviously Film UA has an incredible track record of being able to, you know, sell content abroad, you know, Europe and elsewhere. And I understand that Mavka is the most recent huge success for you guys. Can you sort of describe Film UA's process in terms of, you know, getting content seen by other potential partners for acquisitions?
Так, Джош, дякую. Якраз коли почали говорити про дистриб'юцію, то тут Мавка навіть
Thank you very much. Well, when we started to talk about distribution, okay, it's even a better case in comparison with those which we were discussing, though they have been sold to Denmark and Estonia. Estonians are great friends of ours. They support us a lot. They get the biggest support from Eastern Europe from them. And Iceland and France have bought the rights. When the story has a universal potential, distribution becomes much easier. As for the Mavka, the same story happened. Mavka was actually meant to be an international project, which will be demonstrating Ukrainian culture, Ukrainian animation in the Western world. But in 2018, when actually we were selected for the first pitching and the largest animation forum in Bordeaux, well, we were preparing ourselves to it very well. We just developed a special sizzle, animation sizzle to that. And then we were describing why this project is going to be interesting, what is going to taste like. My children will be interested in it, and what are the unique features of a Mavka, so that people understand what we are going to sell. And this was a long-term work with the international market. They actually got interested into the idea, but then they said, well, let us look at your animation, but it takes time. So we were coming back was, well prepared when, the storytelling is actually realized and it's already a subject of the product. So the distribution started to be much an easier process. So we were able to prove that we can really produce a very good European style animation, because at that time, Ukrainian animation of high level actually was something like there was a sitcom that it can, exist, but nobody knows what are the advantages of it. So it took us some time to prove that we can really present a good animation and we can develop a very good project and work within the schedules to develop all the documentation compliant with the international standards, and everything has to be taken of the timelines, the marketing processes, the production processes. Well, we had to agree upon the format of all the, directions of your activities, not only the scenario. At present, Mavka is represented in 70 countries of the world. We continue negotiating. We have sold it in all European countries, just to Europe. And we not only are selling the rights to digital or television, but we are going to actually screen it in the territory of Canada, Australia, and MENA has already started to screen it, and in the territory of the USA, but this is in USA, it's not going to be screened in the movies. But if the story is good and very well packaged, and you are able to reach the wide distribution if they work real hard to it. But you really have to select the projects with the international potential. And to be quite honest in answering this question, I do have some local products, but I know that we won't be able to bring it to the international market. Like, for example, they will be only developed for the internal domestic use. And for example, comedy, it is very difficult to understand the comedy for the foreign viewers. We had a comedy which was called The Doggies. We were not able to actually to develop it here, but we have developed the format and we actually sold it as a format. And it is a way to earn money. Lisa Lukyanova, my colleague, has a co-production with Estonia, the girl from Tallinn. This project was conceived before the war, but they continue looking for the financing. They almost have achieved some results already, and most probably even by the end of this year, they will be able to start the production. We also have another project, our Hala. We are cooperating with USAID on it. It's a local one, but nevertheless identified certain aspects with the help of Adam, and he helped us to package and form these ideas and how to engage the international partners, what might be interesting for them in this project. So summarizing, I would like to repeat, we have to understand which particular product will be and projects might have a potential, to look at the market, to look at the cases, to understand how to properly package it, starting from the creative presentation to your budget, to the timeline or terminology. For example, when we are saying that the executive producer is going to do this and that, the partners don't understand, because in the Western market, actually the executive producers do not work directly on the film, but we use a different terminology. We have to look for various opportunities. The world has opened for Ukraine, and there is a very positive change in this direction. I mean, the Western partners have understood that, well, it's not simply that we have to help, to get the help from them, but they understood that we have quite new, fresh ideas, which might be new in the market, and we are able to complete development. We demonstrated ourselves like creative, stable partners who know how to implement the project. We have to be very serious about this aspect, and it's a huge responsibility, so that we can continue working with the international partners, so that they can see us as the stable and partners who are able to listen to the feedback, to actually reach compromises, because actually this is the basis of the co-production. It's not only about the Ukrainian stories, but any co-production of any countries is the ability to listen to each other, to hear each other, and to respect the positions of each of the parties, and to be able to find the compromise.
I just want to jump in real quick, Josh. I think I want to underline this point that Anna is now illustrating, and actually Victoria and Tetiana touched on it as well. It goes back to a question we had on Friday, which was, are international buyers only interested in stuff around the war and the current events, or are they looking at other projects from the time before? And the question is maybe, or both. But really the point is, and Anna makes it so well, is that you really have to make sure you listen and understand what they care about, what they need, and really appreciate that. Obviously the issues around the war are very topical and are very interesting. So that is obviously an area that would be of interest. The other areas, like an animated children's film, then you've got to be thinking very clearly about, why does this film speak to the audience in this country? And all of these things have to be very kind of calculated and thought about in your presentation. So you're very much taking at it from their point of view. And I think this underlines that point. And because I know all the projects that Anna's been talking about, some of which we were talking about as doing as a show, but you never know how they develop. Like, as you keep working on them, like with doggies, that project, it was such a great idea that obviously that was what sort of got the attention and got the focus. So you were able to sort of move forward on that. So again, it's about developing these relationships with these international partners, because over time you'll have conversations, you'll be listening, you'll be hearing, and that's how you begin to start to find where your projects, the ones that you're developing, maybe the ones you've already are in production with, where they might, sort of fit well in these markets.
Yeah, no, I exactly. I think you guys have all sort of re-hit sort of what we're saying over and over again. And I guess, real quick before we go to sort of audience questions, because, we want to make sure we have time to do that. I guess for the Osnova team, now that you've had a taste of, an international acquisition and you're starting to get into co-productions, how would you say it's affected or impacted the way your thinking is when it comes to, future projects?
Вікторія, ви у нас
Victoria?
Victoria, maybe you.
Ну, для нас
Well, for us at present, it's extremely important to be able to work and exactly. It is very important what Anna said, the fact that we are filming in Kiev, and we have to demonstrate that it is possible to work in Kiev, and we are capable of working at a good international level. And the opportunities for co-production and the opportunity of sales and acquisitions is also very important for us, because this is an opportunity for us to work for the Ukrainian market as well. So we have to understand how to work with it, how to live with it, what's exactly interesting for our Western partners, because in our market, domestic market, we do not have funding. We understand that culture is very important. It is impossible to reconstruct our society, but during the war, we understand that there are more urgent needs, and the state is not going to spend a lot to finance the movie industry. We hope that the war is going to end soon and things will change, but at present, the cooperation with the Western partners is the only opportunity to work. That's the first thing I wanted to underscore. And I hope that the stories which we are going to produce will be interesting to the Western world. Tetiana started with this. Our company is a very young one, but when we were creating our company, when we were discussing among ourselves what is our mission, well, we decided that we would like to develop the products which are interesting not only with Ukraine, and we decided that we are not going to cooperate with Russia. And that was the starting point for our work. But if we would like to develop good products and significant products, well, we have to actually target the Western world. We would like to cooperate with the Western industry, and we would like to make our product interesting. And you were saying that the story is crucial, and if it's well done, it will be interesting to the world. And this is exactly what we are trying to do when we are looking for the stories. And the time for developing these stories is very good, because the international world started to understand what Ukraine is. They're interested in what we are, who we are. And definitely the war stories is a sore point, not only for us, but for other people as well. And they become very, very interesting. But when we were selling Mama, we were discussing it with our partners. They told us they want Ukrainian stories, and not only about the war. And they quite often ask what stories have been developed prior to the war. They are interested in simple stories about love, life, people. And they would like to understand what we are, who we are. And this is exactly the time to develop these Ukrainian stories. It's very important for us to tell about ourselves to the world, but it is necessary to make these stories interesting not only for the domestic audience, for the audience outside this country. And it's exactly what we have to try to do now. Thank you. Then I will follow up and elaborate on what has been said. What we have acquired. Yeah, this was a turning point. This year was a turning point in our understanding. Because personally, I was always working in the local market, and apart from Mavka, this year has become a huge, trampoline, I would say, and a spring for which I actually jumped and leaped. And we have acquired the new connections, understanding of the East European, Central European market. Myself and the company was trying to assess not only the partners and the market, but also we started to study the audiences. We started to identify needs of the country, what people are interested in, what are the trends, what the viewers are viewing to bring our stories to this market. Well, the war stories are important, but as Victoria mentioned, and the story is not only connected with the war, because we have a lot of unique, interesting stories which we can relate to Europeans and to fit it into the general European context. Maybe you have heard the Film UA leading television company created Ukrainian Content Club, which the Western partners were able to join. And we my colleague, Irina Klastyuk, a producer, submitted the historic product, which is called a potion, and it's based on the story by Olga Kobylanska, the Ukrainian classical writer. And actually, it's very important to find these, stories for the global, universal audience, but it should be unique in its essence, the visual role, the circumstances, the environment, which could look exotic for the viewer, like, for example, our gala, and so that the viewer can research and learn more about this country.
Well, thank you, and thank you, Tetiana. Thank you, Victoria. Your insight, your perspective. I mean, this has been a great conversation. I think it's very informative, and I think it really, just like you said, it reflects some of the basics we started talking about, but it really gives a lot of color and detail to anyone watching. Why don't we move to some questions? Alex, do you have any questions for us from the audience?
Yes, I do. Перш за все, я хочу запросити
First
всіх.
of all, I would like to invite all the viewers from YouTube to actually join us in Zoom, because we have provided you with the link. If you would like to ask this question personally through the camera, please join the Zoom coverage using the link. I have a question to Anna and Tetiana and Victoria. Well, from your experience, what advice would you have given to our colleagues, especially those who have never done it before? Those who, due to these circumstances, face not a need to look for the partners outside this country. And actually, what mistakes you could have cautioned them against, proceeding from your own experience? First of all, well, you have to understand that you should not expect that people will be listening to me because I'm Ukrainian. Well, definitely all our colleagues, Ukrainians, started to try to access the international market with the same pain, with the same trauma. And we are trying to identify partnership and financing. So now we are competing between each other. And this competition is quite strong. Well, the fact that we are from Ukraine and that we have a war story does not give us any advantages. We have to develop our projects very well. We have to evaluate and assess our idea from various points of view. To what extent it's financially sustainable, whether it is professionally laid out, whether you will be able to really collect the professional team which will be able to work on the project of international level. How do you pitch it? How you package it? To whom you are offering your product? Maybe you should not really concentrate on the Canadian market. You'd better go to Estonian. But the Canadians are carrying out a lot of pitchings. You have to study the opportunities the market gives you. There are lots of pitchings at present. Well, I wouldn't say it's a very simple process, but it's an accessible way to actually present your project and start, initial negotiations about your project. And these opportunities exist in Europe, in Canada, in other countries, but you have to package it nicely. You have to develop a very good presentation, a good sizzle, and to make sure that your product is competitive, and then you will succeed and it will work out. There is nothing undoable. Yeah, I would like to add another idea to everything as Anna said. I would like to add the following. At present, we are at the sprint where the victory is not always the most important thing. Participation is very important. And now, actually, we have been working for the Russian market for 30 years. And for the first time, we actually appeared in the Western market as a big and important market. And now we are not that much competitors, but we are partners to each other because we strengthen the presence of Ukrainians the Western market. And definitely, then everything will depend on how you work. If you are, well, our idea to submit this project to the serial killer, it was a spontaneous idea, and we worked on our own. Next year, we were invited to continue a discussion of these ideas. This year, well, we are asked, well, if you have some material, please share it with us. So this festival story does not bring you funds and money, but you can get acquainted with the people. You can demonstrate the presence of Ukraine at very important events which are evolving in the world. Serial products is not presented as widely as the film products, but there are more and more opportunities for presentation. Berlinare, for example, and American and Canadian fora, where one should participate, and it's worthwhile to present Ukraine and to bring high quality, good product, because we have a lot of professionals. We have very good authors. We have great story. It's deep, it's ancient, and it is full of all the elements to be able to consolidate with the European, West European history, because we are the part of the Western world. Simply, we were not aware of that for the last.
So we need to understand which ways we shouldn't take, because some of the ways have been taken, and we understood that you shouldn't take them. What could those mistakes could be? I wouldn't say that there are some of the mistakes. I would just say that there are so many different spheres. Well, of course, you don't need to take a feature film to the documentary session, it's obvious, but still, all of the methods are still possible, so you just need to be everywhere. You need to see the potential of co-production, where you can find grants, where you can find distribution opportunities, and all of that should be divided into some circles, and to understand where you have some of the weaknesses and where you have some of the strengths, where you need to cover the gaps and where you can shape the product at the submission of the application stage, at the presentation stage, when it's just being born, to be more flexible in the process of cooperation with the international partners. Thank you. Are there any questions? Could I please add? Yes, sure. I'd like to add, because this interpretation is very important for me. So I'd like to emphasize that we are still competitors to each other. Tetiana, I support you that, of course, it's a huge opportunity for us, and we need to do whatever is possible to develop it, for Ukraine to be one powerful market, for us to be seen as something whole, which is ready to fight for itself, to present itself, and which looks rather interesting. But still, answering the question of Alexander, what I meant when I spoke about competition, definitely, you shouldn't just rest, thinking that if I'm just Ukrainian and I have some painful story, it's already interesting. No. You should have to work thoroughly on the project for it to be really interesting for the foreign audience. Thank you. Well, in fact, we have a question here about Film UA. That at the previous Cannes Festival, you were speaking that together with the production of Corina, you are launching cooperation on the project of Rebuild Ukraine. Do you have any news about that? Yes, let me be more specific. I can't tell you all the details because this contract is the documentary several projects in the package. Now, Katerina Vishnevska is dealing with that. That is our international co-production director. Katerina has been working in this sphere for many years before the war. And, well, in fact, we had huge, interesting hide and seek, for instance, project, which was a huge co-production. Now they have the project Citizen at War, which has been shot in Kyiv during the winter. They began in December, and now they're having last shifts. This is the citizen at war about the ones who were staying in Ukraine, remaining in Ukraine. As far as I understand, Katerina has several documentary projects, one by one, in this package, which was supported by the foundation. Unfortunately, I don't have any more details. One more question about the rights. If you are in the co-production, how do you share, how do you distribute the rights? Well, okay, they are divided and shared in proportion to the investment of the partners. The one who funds the same share is of the rights. It's a simple scheme, but of course, when you delve deeper into details, everything depends really on the partnership and which, for instance, idea you came with. Because as it is, what we say IP can be costly and can be your investment. It can balance the amount of rights which you get. For instance, with our project of Cosa Nostra, which was shot before the war, but was shown during the war, when we came, and Katerina Vishnevska was also the producer of this project, we decided that the Italians had the majority financial part, but the idea was ours. It was our IP, and we had some of the shootings in Ukraine, and Irma Vitovska, a Ukrainian actress, was the main character. Then we had more rights. We decided to balance. Then it was explained by the financial part. So we still had more rights. The same happened about the negotiations of Mavka. When your IP, when your background, and when your investment, besides finances, is still substantial and impacts the development of the project, its fate, its distribution, it can be a leverage when you make a deal, when you divide the rights.
Thanks, Anna. That's a really great point. It is a deal. It's a negotiation. So these are somewhat complicated process, but that's great insight. Alexander, any more questions?
I don't think we have any more questions, actually.
Okay.
I would like to ask you to give us a preview of what's coming up on Friday.
Yeah. Okay. Well, first, I want to add one thing. Aside from all of the things that Josh and I talked about last week about co-productions and acquisitions, what you need to be successful is you need hardworking and resourceful producers like we've met today. And I just want to really, praise all of our producers that have joined us today. Josh and I have worked with them all. I've worked with them for a number of years, and really am just so impressed with the work that they're doing. It's clear. I mean, it's hard work. It's resourcefulness. You've got to be thinking lots of different ways of how to do this. This isn't easy. This wasn't easy before. It's certainly not easy now. So it is. It takes a lot of work and it takes time. And all of the producers here today I think, are real examples of sort of really good, competent producers that can do this. So congratulations to you and thank you for joining us. Now, on Friday this week, we're going to be meeting with sort of the people on the other side of the table, as it were. We're going to be meeting with the buyers, the people. In this case, we're going to be meeting with our executives from NRK, who represent the Norwegian national channel and broadcaster, and they will be both from the co-production and acquisition side, and they'll be giving us a sense of kind of how they think about it from their point of view, from an outside Ukraine perspective, which I think, as we talked about today, is essential. It's essential that producers in Ukraine now understand they need to hear, they need to meet, they need to get to know the different points of view. And as our producers here today will, I think, agree, is that each one of these countries, each one of these regions have very different sort of ideas and have very different perspectives and you need to address, you need to sort of understand. So we'll be giving a little bit of that point of view with our the executives from NRK next on Friday, this upcoming Friday. And so we really hope that you'll join that, and it will, I hope, kind of fill out the full picture of what is required for the co-production and acquisition process. And Josh, any other final points?
Yeah, no, I want to reiterate what Adam said to the three of you, because you guys are on the front lines and you are continuing to carry the industry on your back. So, we're excited to see what you guys continue to produce, and have no doubt it's going to be terrific content, whatever that is. So keep doing what you're doing.
And I hope we see everyone back on Friday for our final discussion on international productions, Pitch UA education platform talk, or Hollywood talk. We used to call Talk with Hollywood, right? So
thank you.
We hope to see.
Thank
We'll
you.
see you next Friday. Thanks.
Я хочу також подякувати всім.
I would also like to thank everybody who joined our meeting and our guests. Eliseyeva, Tetiana Kuts, and Victoria Gorenstein. That was really a very interesting conversation, and your experience is just invaluable. I think that everyone who has joined us today got lots of interesting and useful info. I do hope that we will see our participants on Friday as well at 3 p.m. Kyiv time. And please let all of your colleagues and acquaintances know about this invitation. We'll be happy to see them as well. I'd like to thank the team who provided us technical support today and our interpreters. And I would like to say again that the educational platform of Pitch UA, as well as the grant competition Pitch UA, is one of the measures of the project of transformation communications activity and the United States Agency on International Development, USAID, and also our partner is the Ministry of Culture and Information Policy. I thank everyone, and we'll see each other, I do hope, all of you, on Friday. Thank you.